try to keep this short and sweet. So wanted to highlight a few things, namely Main Street. I know that's something that a lot of folks are interested in. With regards to Project Sparkle, which is the Gordman's department store, very pleased that the developer that I've been working with over the last year and a half with DNA Holdings actually presented their business plan today to the Industrial Development Authority, who owns the building. The consensus from the Industrial Development Authority was for myself to begin working with Mr. Popovich on a performance agreement by which then they can have access to the deed to obtain ownership and begin working on the building. What is good with that is hopefully by the end of August, they will then have the building in private hands, which then puts the building into the on the tax roll, which then means that property, because it's no longer held by a governmental entity, can be taxable. Secondly, I'm also working with DNA Holdings on aligning state incentives from the Economic Development Association as a state entity, the Appalachian Regional Commission, and from the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, there's agribusiness. The company that we're working with is actually one of West Virginia's third largest breweries in the state. So they will be expanding their operations to Virginia. So that's why we're exploring the state level incentives and what happens with on agribusiness with Virginia grown ingredients and expanding one brewery from West Virginia into Virginia. For example, and this has a lot of potential, even though the building is kind of one of the incentives that they're being provided. Based on our meals tax and an average day at their current facility, we have the opportunity to, just on meals tax, on average, see $130,000 a year annually as a city. That's just on meals tax. That does not include sales tax. That does not include payroll tax, or the employment, or the ancillary businesses that then come with that, or the M&T for manufacturing beverage equipment. So very excited for that. I know the mayor was at the meeting today. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add on that, but there's a lot of excitement and support in the room for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff going on. It takes so much time to get things done.
It does.
Now, I was talking to somebody today. The first time that you and I met the people that opened up the New Mexican Grill
3 years ago
was the day you came.
My first official day on the job, yes.
3 years has come. Took 3 years, almost to the day, to get them to the point that they could open up.
It takes a long time nurturing a business prospect. For instance, with DNA Holdings and Mr. Ballstick, it has taken, it took 1.5 years to get him to the option agreement level. So it was a year of nurturing that relationship, talking about how the city wants to do business, how we want to be a part of something, how can they be part of our downtown revitalization, especially when you're dealing with larger scale investment or large capital investment. Speaking of that, Casa de Leones is our new Mexican grill on Main Street. They have their ribbon cutting tomorrow at 11:30. Figured I would mention that just since we're on the topic of Main Street. And on Saturday, there will be a Down on Main Street event this Saturday with a car show. So if you don't have anything to do or you want something to do, feel free to come down to Main Street. It's open to all, and we will have food and beverages, music, and all of that.
Pool's open too on that one?
That's next weekend.
No, that's for the employees.
And that's 50s and 60s music?
Yes, 50s and 60s. It is themed with the cars around it. So
The Back to the Blue car show will be at the sports complex during the day on Saturday.
correct.
Then about 4 o'clock they'll bring the cars to Main Street.
Yes. In the evening, for the evening event. Yes.
Cool.
And there will be beverage sales and all that. Next thing I wanted to highlight was the Commonwealth Transportation Board, which is the Department of Transportation's board that approves all their major funding projects and all that. So when you apply to get funding for whether it's Rayon Bridge or something on 220, that's the board that approves it. They are meeting Tuesday in Richmond, so I will be attending that meeting as we have multiple projects that we're seeking funding for. One, to thank them face to face for funding Rayon Bridge, but two, we have a application that has advanced and they'll be voting on for a transportation alternative project on 220 from Pine to Beach Street, pedestrian improvements and enhancements for crosswalk, sidewalk, and ADA improvements. As you all know, about 2 years ago, we had a pedestrian fatality there. So just wanting to go and impress the importance upon that and the work that we're doing there. And so, when they vote on those projects, if they're funded, they get included in their 6-year plan. And the nice thing about that now is they don't fund projects in phases, they fund projects up front. So it might be in the 5th year of the plan, but you have your funding. So eager for that. One last thing I'll mention with regards to VDOT too is that I just yesterday and today had 2 separate meetings with VDOT discussing revenue sharing transportation program and the highway safety improvement program. We are planning to apply for not just paving, which is a 1-for-1 match. With the revenue sharing program, it is a 1-for-1 match. So if you have the dollars, they match it. They also have it for sidewalks. So the $500,000 we have for maintenance funds programmed in the budget, we will be submitting for another $500,000 to come from VDOT. That application will go in this coming spring. Same thing for the $100,000 we have for sidewalks in the budget. We will be applying for a 1-for-1 match to get then a total of $200,000 for sidewalk. To put it in perspective, $200,000 is about a quarter mile of sidewalk. So that is, when you think about our needs, that is making a dent in our needs. For just the $500,000 that we have in the proposed budget tonight that you all will vote on, dollars that are in the budget right now for paving, $500,000 will address roughly 40% of our roadway surface with various treatments. With the highway safety improvement program, we had talked about maybe trying to address all of the projects that we had identified on 220 in one fell swoop, but they actually recommended trying to find something that was system-wide with our system. So we're going to be submitting an application to address and modernize all of our traffic signals throughout the city. One of the biggest challenges we have, and it's been noted, is in inclement weather or at nighttime driving, we don't have the high reflective backing on our traffic signals on a lot of them throughout the city, so they're harder to see at night, or if there's rain or snow or those other things, so that you can see them from a further distance. And working on having, moving towards signalized intersections, so they're cued differently. And that was something that VDOT recommended and said that would be highly competitive, especially with the funds that they're seeing a great deal of funds poured into transportation right now as well. So I thought that was exciting and encouraging. And we also have a Hawthorne Bridge application that we're optimistic about. That's with Central Office. Last thing I will report is the financing on the EQ Basin has officially closed. That closed last month. And the construction contract is signed and executed, so the notice to proceed has been issued to the contractors. We're working with Thompson & Litton, that's our engineering firm, and the construction group that is doing this is Heron Construction. They are a firm out of Tennessee that has done this type of work, the basin install and oversight for other localities, especially in Southwest Virginia.
Can you remind me how much the base is going to cost?
8.4 million with 1.7 in principal forgiveness, which means basically there's $1.7 million that we do not have to pay back. And it's 8.4 million that we are borrowing at 0% interest over 25 years. Then I did have 2 other notes. With the landfill, landfill. I'm pleased to report, though, that we're continuing to receive compliance, no compliance issues at our inspections. As you can recall, there was a time last year where we were getting a letter almost every month for just basic operational things and just general compliance. We're continuing to see improvement in that, and while it's not the best thing to be in the landfill business, if you are, you might as well at least do it correctly. So we're at least on the right side now with DEQ on that. And last but not least, touching on, we are moving on filling some of our full-time vacant positions that we have in City Hall, namely the Office of Citizen Services. We're interviewing for full-time permanent positions with that starting this week and the beginning of next week. So we're excited for that. We've been kind of pulling resources. So. TBD.
Krystal,
Yes, sir.
I'm still getting some complaints about, like where the gas company's cutting up the streets and putting the little squares back in the metal. But maybe you ought to let the public know what you've done with Virginia Power and what you're working towards
Yep,
with the
absolutely. So,
gas company.
currently, the gas company is doing an active project. Typically, they will not repave until they're fully done with an entire segment or their project. That is standard, it's not preferred. The issue we're having with the steel plates is we don't currently have anything that requires that they cannot use steel plates, or if they use steel plates, they must compact and backfill prior to. We are working with Dominion on requiring if there is work done in our right-of-way with any disturbance to sidewalks or pavement, that they have to restore it to Department of Transportation standards, and to start conducting quarterly utility meetings to plan out what projects are. So we're not paving or doing sidewalk repairs where there may be a planned utility project. We plan on also taking that conversation to Columbia Gas and asking for them to also look to that. That is pretty much a standard thing to ask of utility companies. It just may take a little more time with Columbia Gas. I've heard some not so great things from the Department of Transportation that have dealt with them in other cities, because there's not cities, towns and counties where there are service lines, because in a lot of places the Department of Transportation directly manages the roads. I will say, when I was talking with Ms. Susan Hammond, the district engineer, yesterday, she actually sent me their entire utility requirements section, which I also sent to our public works director, and we're going to look at potentially proposing it to you all as an ordinance that we can adopt, that we require things to be restored based on VDOT utility restoration requirements. So we're working on it. It is a work in progress. It's just unfortunate that there seems to be an abundance of work occurring right now. Columbia Gas, like many utility service providers, and the same thing with Dominion, they've received a lot of federal and state relief dollars, so they're also doing the same thing like we're doing with addressing infrastructure. So they're doing line renewal and replacement. Dominion's going to be doing a lot of line work with trenching and taking their lines underground in many areas that they haven't done that yet. So we're continuing to work with them, and I will just say Dominion's been great to work with. They worked really well with our public works director, and they're actually pulling permits for their work in the streets, and we're getting notice. So it's just a matter of pushing Columbia to do the same.
Thank you.